CodeHS has really made my career. Was an IT guy in K-12 and became an IT manager at another school. And with that school, with that job came a small class called computers. And the curriculum had been set for a while, and we're sort of supposed to teach students how to save things to hard drives and noodle around with Word. And I was looking at my students about 2 weeks in, and they were very, very bored. So I thought maybe we should try some programming, and we tried a couple of different ways of starting programming, and then we found our way onto CodeHS, which, unknown to me, was very early in CodeHS's history. This is about 10 years ago. And I thought this was something that was gamified and had these nice levels with content, sample codes, short quizzes, and lessons. And the kids really were super excited about CodeHS. So when I saw that inspiration that CodeHS would provide, we sort of ran with it, and the rest is history. I sort of blew coding up at the school. Then I got hired at another school to just be a teacher. So the CodeHS was sort of my way into the classroom. But all along the way, I've sort of battled the idea that somehow I'm not a good enough coder, or not, experienced enough with coding to be teaching this subject. And I've found an awful lot of other teachers with the same thing, teachers who are math teachers who are sort of voluntold, you're going to be teaching AP Java. That's a great story for me. After this first year, when coding just sort of infected the school where I was, the assistant head walked into my classroom and said, "You're teaching AP Java next year." And I had never written a line of Java code. So that was an interesting year. We actually betaed the first CodeHS Java course. And so this is a dear topic to my heart. And let's go forward a little bit here.
Hey, Joe, can I pause you for 1 second?
Sure.
I think when we were testing beforehand, we had turned your camera off. Could you maybe pop that back on?
Absolutely. And right now I'm blocked with the fun fact poll. Is there any way for you to turn that off, or how do I get rid of that or remove it? Do you know? Oh, I see. I got it.
Okay,
There
cool.
we go. Okay, here comes my video starting, Leah. Thank you for breaking in there. Okay, we good, Leah?
All good.
All right. So what we're going to do here is talk a little bit about, what the heck is imposter syndrome. I've told you a little bit about my story, and we're going to talk a little bit about why imposter syndrome affects me and how I've used CodeHS to overcome it. And we're going to think about how you guys will face imposter syndrome and deal with it. And always, there are lots of room for questions and for you guys to make some contributions out there. And we've got Leah and Mark from CodeHS who are very good at working with me. And so please go ahead and throw things into the chat, submit questions whenever you feel they're relevant, and we'll deal with them as they come. All right. The main thing I want to say is what you guys have, all of you teachers, you have thoughts, hopes, and dreams for your students, and your students better than some pro coders working somewhere, or than anybody else. And what you know and bring to your students is so important in your ability to inspire them. And I regard that as the greatest power is what your relationship with your students. You know their names, you know about them, you're helping them. They have quite a bit to overcome to get started coding, and that's going to be your secret weapon in overcoming imposter syndrome. So in the way of dreams, I'm going to show a video here that's been inspirational to me. And you're going to hear a familiar voice narrating William Shatner. And we're just going to run this, and then we'll proceed. Uh-oh, I went back. Hold on. Maybe this is not going to work. Hold on. I need to go backwards now. Boom, boom. All right, let's try this again, people.
50 years ago, we pioneered the path to the way. The trail we blazed, cut through the fictions of sounds, and showed us all what was possible. Today, our calling to explore is even greater. To go farther, we must be able to sustain missions of greater distance and duration. We must use the resources we find at our destinations. We must overcome radiation, isolation, gravity, and extreme environments like never before. These are the challenges we face to push the bounds of humanity. We're going to the moon to stay by 2024. And this is how.
This all starts with the ability to get larger, heavier payloads off planet and beyond Earth's gravity.
For this, we designed an entirely new rocket.
Space launch system. SLS will be the most powerful rocket ever developed.
And with components in production,
In more in testing,
this system is capable of being the catalyst for deep space missions. We need a capsule that can support humans from launch through deep space and return safely back to Earth. For this, we built Orion.
This is NASA's next generation human space capsule.
Using data from lunar orbiters that continue to reveal the moon's hazards and resources.
We're currently developing an entirely new approach to landing and operating on the moon. Using our commercial partners to deliver science instruments and robotics to the surface, we are paving the way for human missions in 2024.
Our charge is to go quickly and stay, to press our collective efforts forward with a fervor that will see us return to the moon in a manner that is wholly different than 50 years ago.
We want lunar landers that are reusable, that can land anywhere on the lunar surface. The simplest way to do so is to give them a platform in orbit around the moon from which to transition.
An orbiting platform to host deep space experiments and be a waypoint for human capsules. We call this lunar outpost Gateway.
The beauty of the Gateway is that it can be moved between orbits
It will balance between the Earth and Moon's gravity.
in a position that is ideal for launching even deeper space missions. In 2009, we learned that the moon contains millions of tons of water ice.
this ice could be extracted and purified for water, and we separating oxygen for breathing, hydrogen for rocket fuel.
The moon is quite uniquely suited to prepare us and propel us to Mars and beyond.
This is what we're building.
This is what we're training for.
This we can replicate throughout the solar system.
This is the next chapter of human space exploration.
Humans are the most fragile element of this entire endeavor, and yet we go forth in it. We go to the moon and onto Mars to seek knowledge and understanding and to share it with all. We go knowing our efforts will create opportunities that cannot be foreseen. We go because we are destined to explore and see it with our own eyes. We turn towards the moon now, not as a conclusion, but as preparation, as a checkpoint for all that lies beyond. Our greatest adventures remain ahead of us. We are going.
We're going.
We are going.
We are going.
We're going.
I encourage you guys to check out Johnny Kim, who is briefly seen in that video. He's a pretty remarkable astronaut. Let me back off this full screen. And let me go to the next slide. I think, oh, hold on, this always happens to me. Let's see if we can go unfull screen this. Nope. Screen. There we go. Now let's go to the next slide. All right, I want all of you guys out there watching to take a second and write down what you think imposter syndrome is, and then we'll move on.
Hey, Joe, while people are throwing or putting that into the chat, we did have one quick question.
Sure.
What was your first CodeHS course that you taught?
Great question. At the time I found CodeHS, I don't think there was anything other than the oldest JavaScript course. So I worked with Carol and JavaScript, and I absolutely think that the Carol format that you see in Intro to JavaScript, and now you can even break out Carol now, it's available just as its own course, is a tremendous way to get people started coding. And every student, I think, is apprehensive about getting going if they haven't done much coding before. And when you say there's only 4 commands here and you just need to write those in some sort of sequence, it is a tremendous moment. I think the first day of CodeHS is the greatest day, because that is when a lot of people who've heard a lot of things about programming find out that they can do it. And I just love watching students and other people. I've had, board members, parents, etc., start CodeHS, and they love the idea that they can do this. And I think that's just such a tremendous the intro to JavaScript with Carol in it is a phenomenal course that CodeHS has, and that's been my bread and butter for 10 years, Leah.
Great. Thank you. We've got some great answers popping up in the chat. A
Good.
feeling that you aren't good enough or don't
Mhm.
belong.
Yeah.
Feeling like others have high expectations and you
Yeah.
supporting them than the skills that you bring to the table.
hmm
When a teacher believes he or she is not prepared to teach the course,
Yeah.
fake it until you make it.
Mhm.
When you don't feel worthy of your achievements, feeling like a fraud. Yeah, these are good.
Right. So, and you know what, those feelings and those thoughts, first of all, I've had all those, and those are part of the reason that there's a shortage of CS teachers, and there's not as much CS teaching going on as we would all like to see. A lot of schools are trying to hang on to the programs that they have. By that, I mean, they're trying to hang on to their football team. They're trying to hang on to their band. Nobody's like adding new course offerings these days. So of course, those of us who are put in a position where it's time for us to try to teach coding are going to feel like we're not, professionally ready to do this. But, you know, you have these students and their parents who really want this. They want to learn programming. They know that it's very relevant and it's going to help their future. I have 2 Stanford admits this year. I have great college admits and great internship admits, and I just treasure, what my students have been able to do. And I know all of you guys have this passion for teaching, and just I would suggest to you to let that drive you. And so we're going to cover some bases about how to deal with some of these feelings. I really appreciate you guys sharing that, Leah. I think I'm going to move to the next slide, Leah. So this is where we just were with some of the contributions from the crowd, and those are ones that I came up with. And we look at other professions and we find imposter syndrome there also. And I can't believe Jodie Foster said, when she won her Oscar, she thought it was a fluke. She thought she might have to give it back. Maya Angelou famously, thinks that, or thought that, people were going to find out that she wasn't up to the task. I mean, so who has imposter syndrome? Well, me, I was a new teacher, new to the classroom when they gave me that little course to teach. And, many of you are not on your first school, and when you come to, or you might be new to a school now, and that is part of that process of being a new teacher is a challenge. And you feel like, well, these other people that are teaching have been here for a couple of years, and they know the culture and they understand, the whole rhythm, the cycle of the year, etc. I find that there are cultural issues, all over the place for people who have been told, you can't do this for this reason, or you can't do this because of this type of person you are, or, maybe you're a young person, you're starting out with your teaching career. Of course, you would say, I don't really understand how I could possibly be doing this, but everybody can give this great gift of coding, of programming to young people with CodeHS. Some of you guys are voluntold. I met a great, when CodeHS had me give a speech out at the CSTA convention in San Diego, I met a great teacher from a low-income area in Bridgeport who had been voluntold to teach coding, and she had very few resources available to her. And but she was threw her passion at it and became very successful. And that was when I realized there was this imposter syndrome that was a pretty widespread. If you don't have a professional credential, I don't have a master's degree. I put in some time in grad school, but wasn't able to complete my master's. And I certainly don't have any kind of credential in coding. I have a couple of certs from Microsoft that are more relevant to IT, but I don't have any kind of credentials in coding. I do encourage my kids to get credentials because I think they're very helpful and useful. I do encourage my students to do things like use the CodeHS certifications or pursue Oracle certs. And I've got a pretty good record of people getting Oracle 811 certs in high school. And then you have a weird other problem that can pop up when you start to have success. Sometimes your success causes you to question yourself even more. And this happened to me a couple of times. I was really flattered that CodeHS had me give a presentation, not on this topic in San Diego. And I started thinking, what is going on? Why am I having this success? And I wonder if maybe that was the issue with the actress Jodie Foster or some other people. Just, your success sort of, you feel like it's sort of outraced your qualifications, and that's a fairly normal thing to be feeling. If you've been voluntold to teach CS, if you are a successful teacher in the humanities or a successful math teacher, math and coding I feel like they're quite different disciplines. And a lot of people are going to say, well, let's just get a good math teacher and have them teach coding. And if you've been teaching algebra, that programming is different from that. And of course you would feel some imposter syndrome there. If you're a middle school teacher and you're talking about upper school, reaching into this coding thing, or if you've come from an IT background like me, or if you're any sort of minority for whatever reason, there are messages that you might be receiving that this or that person, by virtue of who they are, is not a CS teacher. It's not the social idea of a geek or somebody who ought to be coding. And another thing for me is I'm 63 years old. I've had a beautiful 10-year career teaching coding, but when most people think of a professional coder, they think of some guy, wearing headphones, and he's maybe 30 or 25 or something like that. And he's been coding since he was like 2 years old. I'm not I don't present as a typical coder. So I would like you, again, just as we just did this reflection, which was very useful on what imposter syndrome is, to just think a little bit about how you got to where you are. And it's probably going to be anything but, I compiled 4, degrees in computer science and designed some chips, and then I just decided to jump into K-12. That's not the story of most K-12 programming teachers. So I'd be interested to hear, and Leah can help moderate that. Are we okay, Leah? How are we doing?
We're doing great. Would anyone like to, would you like people to maybe share a little bit about that, or just throw it into the chat? Or
you could throw it in the chat. Let me just let about 20 seconds go here, and you guys, teachers, can make some notes, and then I'm gonna actually push forward in the slideshow. Okay, Leah?
Sounds great.
So I'll give everybody a little bit of time just to make a couple notes for yourselves. And if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine. I mean, how I got into IT was kind of weird. I sort of was, for a while, a guy with the truck driving around fixing people's computers and fixing their networks. And then one of my clients told me, this school really needs your help. They're short of IT people. And my client told me to go talk to a school. So that's how I got into K-12 IT. And I spent 5 years in that. And then I was offered a job as a manager, and that's how I started teaching. And now I don't do IT, I just teach. All right, so let's go forward. All right, so when I started, I had a 3-year-old, and I needed a little bit more control over my time than a conventional job might offer. So I started a service business doing break fix IT. And I didn't advertise. I just did small businesses plus homes, and I grew my customer base. I did that for several years, and I was lucky and had a guy who was in charge of a big network of dental offices that really liked my work. And finally, my daughter got bigger and enrolled in school, and then I could do a normal job. And one of my customers said, talk to a school because they need me. And, I was very flattered about that. And I worked at that school for 5 years, did some coaching, and, my coaching, I really liked working with the kids. And I took some teaching classes at a community college, but it was very tough to get their certificate. I started, it started looking like a big mountain to actually get into the classroom. And then I was hired after 5 years at the one school. I got a promotion, hired by a different school to be IT director, and I got a raise. And they gave me this little class called computers, and the students were really bored. So we tried programming, and we did not just light on CodeHS right off the bat. We tried a couple other things, and they were sort of bored with those. And then we found CodeHS, and I'm really glad that my students did not stick with some of the other things we were trying, and that they held out for something that they felt was really friendly, and CodeHS just worked for them. And there are many things about CodeHS that I like, but I would say if you had to characterize some of my success, it's been with difference learning, which means we can run the people who are finding like they want to go quickly can push forward, and the people who are not quite as quick, who are still going to be great coders and still going to be part of great coding teams and still learn the Java language, don't have to go as fast as some of the other people. As a matter of fact, some of the people that don't go as fast produce really amazing projects, or can turn into great debuggers, or unit testing, that kind of thing. So it's not really about speed, but the difference learning aspect of CodeHS that you can do is a big help, and it keeps everybody engaged. So I think the engine of my success has been student engagement, and CodeHS has been such a huge help with student engagement. And small group learning, which is the way pro coders work in teams. And, it's really nice to be able to elbow the student next to you and say, could you please look at this thing? It's not running. And then the student goes and finds a missing semicolon or something. And, you get that small group vibe going. And I have my students work in pods of 4, and they usually sort of pair up, and there's usually, one or two people working together more than 4, but small group learning is great. So that first school I was at, CodeHS blew it up, and my students were coding in other classes. They were picking up detentions because they were in English class doing coding. They were coding on the bus. The only way to describe what happened at that school is it just caught fire, and it became sort of a local, famous thing that these students were doing all this coding at a school over on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And there's an article that CodeHS has written here about how this went, and I was really proud of it. There's Tyler Judd who famously said, Mr. Thompson, computers are dumb. Nothing could be more true than that, in that you have to, when you're doing coding, you've got to give the computer very precise instructions. So I really thank him for that. And this was these guys coding in a non-coding environment. I think they were in their English class working on some CodeHS stuff. And we were looking at AP Java in spring of 2015, and Jeremy graciously included us in his nationwide tour, and he brought Carol to our school and the famous pink CodeHS mobile. It was really an amazing day when Jeremy came to our class. It was really something to see. And some of my students actually coded him in. They put road signs out there that said turn right. And that's my students way back when, with Jeremy's in that picture somewhere, and they just thought this was the greatest thing. There's Tyler Judd again with Carol and Jeremy. Leah, Jeremy still looks like that. He still looks exactly like that, Leah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So of course the school newspaper, or the local newspaper, covered this event, and it was pretty cool. And Carol is still in my classroom. So plenty of issues remaining. The first version of the CodeHS Java course was a little bit tricky, and I was really happy when the second version came out. And I had to grow myself a little bit. I just remember being terrified about teaching, an AP course in coding. That was sort of its own little mini imposter syndrome. There is like I'm pretending to know the Java language, and but I encourage all of you who are considering doing APCSA, or you're wondering whether your school should offer it. I think it's a great course, and I think that you should pursue it. And I also like computer science principles, so I'm really pretty fond of the APCSA, and my students who have taken it have really blossomed. You should all know that I don't have a whole lot of formal teaching training. I don't have a degree in teaching. I did take a couple of classes at the community college, but it started to look like a real big mountain to get through everything I needed to get through in order to get the certificate that I would have to teach in Anne Arundel County. And I also would say that to this day, I am not the world's greatest classroom manager. I tend to let student comments go, and I don't run a classroom incredibly well, but my results have been good. I'm quite pleased about how they've gone. So the second year after I had this one first successful year, this assistant head walked in my office and said, "You're teaching AP Java." And I was like, "Oh God, this is not going to work out." And I started just looking at books, looking online, seeing what I can do. And I knew that there was this CodeHS beta course out there, and we tried that. One of my students who was in one of those pictures got a 4 on the first time we offered a Java, which was my second year teaching coding. And I give him all the credit for that. I now kind of teach as I teach AP Java, I'm sort of critiquing the AP Java course as we go. And we know that Java is a gigantic language that's used for a lot of commercial things, and that you're teaching OOP, or teaching object-oriented programming, when you're teaching Java. And that's what makes it very valuable to students and to their families, and puts them on track to do commercial coding in the future. And I've worked at it. I've worked at getting better at understanding and teaching Java. I feel like I'm a better Java guy now than I was. And this slide's a reference to meeting Mary Para at Bridgeport, and suddenly, I guarantee all of you guys who are thinking, this is tough, and I'm battling. Your battles and my battles are nothing compared to what Mary has done in the Bridgeport public schools. And you're going to find supportive colleagues all over the place. Public schools, independent schools, tutoring, after school programs, and what you can maybe keep coming back to is that fantastic feeling when you put your students in front of Carol the very first day, and watch them write code that makes Carol run in a square, or watch Carol build the pyramid. It's just a fantastic day. And they go from, what is this coding, or it's for somebody else, it's for some tech guy. They overcome their own feelings of they can't do this, and all of a sudden they're like, I can write some code. And that should propel you forward, I think. And I really value all of you guys. My experience is that there are tremendous effective teachers all over the place, and you just have to kind of draw on your strengths as a teacher. Their local colleges are very interested in high school students and high school student coding. I had a really interesting couple of years of taking students up to Dartmouth. I sort of called all over the place, and I got lucky, and Dartmouth we were on the phone with Dartmouth, and they said, we really want to meet your students. And I said, okay, this will be great. You're gonna like Zoom or something. And then they said, no, we want you guys to come up and visit us. So we had that. But I would encourage you guys to reach out to local colleges, or reach out to maybe businesses that are doing coding, maybe mobile app developers in the area. And that will help your students see what the professional possibilities are for them. The first school I was in the classroom, which I was loving, but I was also the IT director. And I felt like I started to feel like that was too many hats. And I really had this passion for teaching. So I was offered another job at Avon Old Farms as a full-time teaching. And I loved it there. And it was great to be a full-time teacher without IT responsibilities for me. And the same thing happened at Avon that happened at Gunston. You know, when we installed CodeHS. Coding just blew up. We added a new section of intro 4 weeks into the first semester. And then the second year I was there, we added a second section of AP Java and a mobile app development class. And then the final year I was there, my second year, we hired a second teacher. In my last semester that I was at Avon, I was too busy to teach algebra anymore. So it was just coding. And if those of you who are either just getting started with CodeHS or considering using CodeHS to teach, get ready, because what's going to happen when you start using CodeHS is you're going to find a lot of people out there that discover that they can do it, and the interest is gonna blow up, and you're gonna not have a small silo of capable coders, but a whole bunch of people who feel like they can do this. That's a good thing. And this is a little article that Avon put out. We actually taught in an old water tower, and that was kind of a cool place to teach there. And I took these guys from Avon up to the Dartmouth lab, and the Dartmouth lab had gotten bigger too. That was a pretty fun trip. And we saw a Dartmouth ice hockey game while we were there. My dad got sick the second year I was at Avon, and I needed to move again back to near where my dad was. And I had a proven record, so you know I could talk about Gunston and Avon, and was able to navigate the change. And I was you know, in demand, and I landed at a great school, McDonough School, where I currently am. And I love my school and my boss. I've been there for 5 years, and I'm very happy there. I have students that are working at a government agency. I have had, that number has changed now. There's many more than 5. I think I have 9 or 10 students doing internships at Lockheed Martin. I have students at Yale. I've got admits at Stanford, Penn, Columbia. I've got a couple students at Columbia. My student Kemka is at Georgetown, and she's doing a biomedicine, some sort of medical device coding at Columbia this summer. So I'm just super proud of what my students have done. And you know, I know all of you are, look at your students with this incredible potential that they have, and you know, it's just a question of really how do you sort of light the fire that they have, you know, and let their own passion drive them forward. And CodeHS is an awesome way to tap into that incredible energy that young people have, and the desire that they have to master things and be really good at something and identify themselves as somebody who can do this. And you know, I give an awful lot of credit to CodeHS, and if you're the type of teacher that can work as a sort of guide on the side and let the students drive themselves forward, you're going to have tremendous success with this. I mean, a lot of different teaching styles work with CodeHS, but you know, as somebody who is not as comfortable with direct instruction as with a sort of guide on the side, it's been tremendous to be a partner with CodeHS. I also wanted to point out that now a lot of schools will accept code in their applications. A lot of colleges will accept code in their applications. If you write code and submit it to Dartmouth, Dartmouth will send it to this lab, DALI, and they will evaluate it. And this is now 3 years ago. We won CodeQuest. I was absolutely shocked that they had 55 teams from all over the DMV, and we won CodeQuest, which I still am just so happy about. And we've had further success at Lockheed Martin's CodeQuest competition and had internships there. And I've gotten better at Java. I've gotten better over the last couple of years. So how do I begin to fight imposter syndrome? Think about the room setup. You know, I don't put myself in a position where imposter syndrome can grab me. I actually teach from the back of the room, and I have sort of 5 pods in my room with 4 seats around them. And because we have a lot of coding involved, I can sort of project my code and in the back of the room make a few comments or have other students talk about what the code that they see up on the screen. But I urge you to think about how your room is working for you, and essentially taking the spotlight and putting it on the code or in some other place to help you alleviate the anxiety you might be feeling. And also think a little bit about, where this anxiety might be coming from, and think about how you can reinforce what you're doing. You're doing such an amazing thing for your students, and you have to kind of keep reminding yourself and find some ways to remind yourself of that. Yeah, this is me. This slide is about, different teachers have different styles, and some teachers are very comfortable, and that is your strongest suit, is direct instruction from the front of the classroom. And, maybe you're gonna just do the slides in CodeHS, but you're going to actually tell them what's going on, and wait for questions from them. But for me, it's guided discovery, where we're sort of all going up this hill together. And it's sort of all of us versus the platform. We're all trying to get through these lessons and even individual exercises together, and by helping them work the platform as sort of you and them versus not versus, but well, to be honest with you, I treat it as a almost adversarial, like, okay, what's going on with this lesson? And we have a thing called a doozometer that one of my students, or several of my students, made, where each time we come to a new exercise, they're allowed to say how hard they think the exercise is on a scale of 1 to 5, but they replaced 1 to 5 with various levels of dooziness. And
That's, you say
yeah,
that is really cool. Joe, just as a heads up, we have
Yeah.
5 minutes before the closing session
Sure.
starts. Okay.
All right, I'm going to keep trucking here. So I teach from the back. I'd encourage you guys to think about that, and that facilitates guided discovery when you're engaging the whole class. We have comfort objects in my class. I have a Wally, I have some Minecraft stuff, and some ugly dolls. That helps. I use the problem guides. I sort of work backwards from the answers in CodeHS, and I don't want any of you to hesitate to use those problem guides. There's running code and lots of good answers to questions, and I would not hesitate to either put sample code up or put a PG right up on the screen and ask students to talk about it. I think if you get too stuck and you have the expectation that you're going to wait till everybody figures everything out on their own, you might have some students that are creating an environment where they're not allowing themselves to be successful. So I would not hesitate to go forward with the PGs in certain moments, and use those, value running code. And expect adversity. I mean, this is, some of you guys don't have the world's greatest boss, and they might be telling you things that don't make you comfortable. I mean, I had a math department head up at Avon come in my class, and he told me to forget guided discovery and go up in the front of the classroom and, basically put these students in their place. And that was a tough thing for me, but, don't let that reinforce your imposter syndrome. And I know that's easier to say than done. And, you're going to have parents who are wondering why, Jimmy isn't the world's greatest, right off the bat. This is a hard thing, and you are a good teacher. It's not easy. It's not easy to not let these other situations reinforce your imposter syndrome, but we got to fight it together. Keep your happy memories close at hand. Turn to them, your students, and your colleagues for the support you need. When you get notes from your students, I keep a cape a colleague made for me on my wall. I replaced her computer, and they made me a cape and had me wear it for a day. So hang on to those good memories that you have. I think those are helpful. And then try to do as much CodeHS content as you can. Don't be afraid to identify the difficulties. Your students will love you for it. And it just happens to be true that coding is difficult. Help your students one-on-one. Encourage them to look at each other's code. A noisy classroom is probably better than a quiet one. My classrooms are very noisy. I use counter height tables and stools. If you have any counter height tables around the school and you can bring those in, it's going to make it easier for students to move around the classroom. It's going to make it easier for you to get over to a laptop and look. You don't really want to be bending over any more than you have to. It's easier to just move around if you're at counter height. Comments, just show code on the screen and have the students just tell you what's going on with the code they see. That's an important skill, and they will learn by doing it. All right, I'm gonna show you one more video, and this is only a minute or two, I think. Lee, are we okay to show this one?
I think we're cutting it close on time because the
Okay.
final session, I'm sorry.
Right, no problem. Let me skip that one. And I would also say to you, stay in touch with your students after they graduate and listen to them. Do that. Make sure to do that. And thank you guys at CodeHS. Thank your students for their hard work and all the risks they took. Dream and encourage your students to dream and let them see you dreaming. Hang on to those dreams. And that's it, Leah.
Oh my gosh, Joe, that was amazing. And yeah, what Mark said in the chat, wonderful pieces of advice on how to overcoming imposter syndrome. Joe, that was a wonderful session.